The Wolf Dog by Walt Morey. Chapter 1. Charlie One Eye lifted the squirming pup by the scruff of the neck and looked at him. His careless grip pinched the pup's tender skin, and he wriggled and whimpered in protest, but the man studied him with no concern. The whimper turned to a growl. Suddenly the pup twisted his head and sank tiny needle-sharp teeth in Charlie's thumb. Charlie One Eye dropped the pup. His big hand struck, and with a startled yelp of pain and surprise, the pup was knocked and rolling. He gathered himself and charged back to the attack, growling the pup with puppy ferocity. Again the hand sent him spinning and howling. He was up and bowled end over end a third time. Once more he wobbled uncertainly to his feet, prepared to do battle. The hand swept up, and the pup stopped. He had learned painfully what that hand could do. He sank to his belly in the grass, eyes on the upraised hand. The hand lifted him. He continued to growl and show his teeth, but he did not attempt to bite.
"You learn quick who's boss," Charlie One Eye said. "And you got fight. I like that."
Charlie studied the small growling bundle with his one good eye.
"You've got wolf in you," he said. "You've got the shape, the feet, the head, and the eyes. You're going to be big, strong, smart, and tough. Mean, too."
Charlie One Eye was struck with a surprising thought. He'd raised sled dogs to sell. Twice in the past he had tried to win the North American Sled Dog Derby at Fairbanks. A win would have made his dogs greatly sought after and twice as valuable. But each time he'd lost because his leader dog collapsed. A good team begins with a good leader, and he'd never had one. In his mind's eye he saw this full pup, grown and trained, the head of a team of strong, willing dogs. The old desire to just once more flamed up in him anew.
"Why not?" he told himself. "I've got one good race left in me before I'm too old. It'll take 2 years for this pup to grow big and tough and to be trained. I can't wait that long, but this'll be my last try at the North American. I can wait that long, but this'll be my last try at the North American." He said to the pup, "You'll grow up smart and tough and mean. Not mean like the wolf, mean like Kvik, the wolverine. He's the meanest in all the North. Grow up like him, then we'll see what we can do." The pup growled all through the inspection and showed his teeth. His big yellow eyes never left the man's face. It was the man who finally looked away. He abruptly dropped the pup. "Go on, get big," he said, and watched the pup struggle away through the long grass. In the months that followed, Kvik fulfilled all of Charlie One Eye's predictions. He grew big, strong, and smart. Charlie saw to it the wolf's side of his nature was not neglected. "A lead dog's got to be a fighter," he insisted. "Got to lick every dog in the team and to keep 'em in line." He showed Kvik no sympathy or mercy. The dog never heard a kind or encouraging word or felt the touch of a gentle hand. Kvik took out his anger at Charlie on the rest of the team. This was as Charlie One Eye wanted. It was not that Charlie was deliberately cruel. Dogs were machines to do his bidding, and he was training them the grueling pace he knew the North American to be. Properly trained, they could be the answer to a dream he'd had for many years. So he used the whip, and sometimes his feet or a club, unsparingly when they did something wrong. Day after day he ran them until they staggered and were ready to drop. He forced them to pull loads of logs and ice until they could not budge another pound. He made them lean and tough and mean, and Kvik was their leader. To Kvik all humans were like Charlie One Eye. A truce existed between the man and the dog. Kvik recognized Charlie's authority, but he was not broken or cowed by the man's rough treatment. At full growth, Kvik could travel all day on one small fish. He looked like a big Arctic wolf with his grayish-white coat, his black masked face and huge head tapering down to powerful jaws and knife-sharp teeth. His legs were long and heavy, his feet broad. His chest was wide with massive muscles that gave him great pulling strength and amazing stamina. He moved with quick, gliding steps, big head down, yellow eyes slightly narrowed, as if he measured an opponent for a lightning attack. The little trick he had as a pup of looking Charlie straight in the eye he had never lost. Charlie kept Kvik chained when not working, for to let him free was to invite danger and disaster. Local dogs had challenged him when he ran free, and he killed several with brutal speed. This was the manner of dog Kvik had become when Charlie One Eye took the team to Fairbanks for his last try to win the North American Sled Dog Derby. Fairbanks was in the grip of electric excitement. Teams had come from all parts of North America to compete for the richest cash prize ever offered. Charlie had realized all odds were against him and his untried team, and the betting bore that out, but he knew what Kvik could do. He had banked everything on his big, tough leader, and Kvik did not let him down. This was the dog George C. Hunter saw when he stepped out
the door of the Hunter Enterprises office on Fairbanks Main Street just in time to witness the finish of the race. He saw the winning team stagger across the finish line and collapse, the driver folding over the sled, exhausted. Then the hysterically happy, shouting crowd surged around them. Cameras snapped and whirred, horns blew, people shouted and laughed. A half-dozen public address speakers blared the time and the winner's name into the bedlam. This scene was not new to Hunter. It was the same every year. He was about to turn away when the crowd parted and he again saw the team. Every dog but one was flat on the ground, on the snow. The leader stood, head up, sharp ears pricked forward, utterly oblivious of the noise and the crowd milling about him. He had the dignity of a king, the bearing of a champion. In spite of the murderous miles he had just run, he looked alert and ready to lunge forward again at the command of his master. For a surprised moment, Hunter thought, "Why, he's a wolf." But no wolf could lead a dog team. This dog did have the heavy legs, the lean, muscled body of a wolf. "What an animal!" Hunter marveled under his breath. He moved into the street for a better look. People were fussing over the rest of the prostrate team, unhitching them, petting them, and trying to lift them up on wobbly legs, but no one went near the big leader. He stood alone in a small cleared space, his air of aloofness and calmness unchanged. Hunter came to a stop an arm's length before the wolf-like dog. The dog dropped his head in a typical wolf's gesture and looked back at Hunter with yellow eyes. So steady was the animal's gaze, the man had the odd sensation the dog was measuring him. The feeling annoyed him, and he tried to beat the dog's gaze down with his own sharp black eyes. The absurdity of the situation came to him, and Hunter turned abruptly away. But as he quit the street, he had the uncomfortable feeling those yellow eyes were boring into his shoulder blades. A thought came to him, and he stopped to let it work its surprising way through his mind. Once it had, he acted upon it immediately. He strode to where the mine manager stood watching the crowd, and asked, "John, was that the owner pushing the winning team?" "Charlie One-Eye, Mr. Hunter?" "Sure." "Where can I find him, away from here?" "He's staying temporarily in a cabin outside town about a mile. It's right on the road. You can't miss it. There'll be a lot of dogs staked out around the place." "He doesn't live around here?" "He's up from Kotzebue way. He'll be heading home in a day or two, I imagine." George Hunter nodded. He turned, eyes searching for the wolf-like dog again. He only got a glimpse. Then the crowd surged in front of him, but the dog was standing as calm and impassive as ever. Charlie One-Eye was out in the yard checking over his staked dogs the next morning when George Hunter arrived in an old beat-up taxi. Hunter wasted no time. "Saw you win the race yesterday. It was quite a show." His voice was sharp and businesslike. He pointed at Kavik staked to a chain some distance from the other dogs, watching him with that level yellow gaze. "I want him." "You want to look at him? There he is." "I want to buy him." "Buy him? That dog?" Charlie's one good eye opened wider. "That's right. You gonna sponsor a team, Mr. Hunter?" Hunter shook his head. "Got no taste for it. Stupid sort of sport. I'll have him sent outside to my home." Charlie One-Eye rubbed his long jaw while he absorbed this surprising information. "I really hadn't figured to sell Kavik," he had said finally. "He's my lead dog." "Start figuring now." The thought of selling a dog to George C. Hunter pleased Charlie tremendously. It would be a real feather in his cap, almost as great as winning the North American. But he knew Hunter's reputation and became wary. Beneath that small, dapper exterior lurked a very tough man. He had heard how those black eyes could become glacier cold and his voice icy. By sheer drive, toughness, and shrewdness, Hunter had become one of the North's wealthiest men. His mining, fishing, and lumbering interests were extensive. If he sold Hunter a dog he didn't like, the little man would make him no end of trouble. He said, "Kavik's no house dog, no pet, Mr. Hunter." "That's obvious. What's his bloodlines?" "Part Malamute, part wolf." "Part wolf?" Hunter seemed pleased. "He looks all wolf." "He's a quarter, a throwback to a big Arctic wolf father. He's got the Arctic wolf eyes, his cunning and strength, his meanness, too." Hunter kept looking at the dog as if he hadn't heard. "What did you call him?" "Kavik." Charlie pronounced it Kavik. "It's Eskimo for Wolverine." "Odd name for a dog." "It fits him," Charlie said. "I never tried to make a pet of him. I've been mighty rough on him to make him the kind of lead dog I wanted. You saw it pay off yesterday. I'd rather sell you another dog, Mr. Hunter. I've got some good ones here." "Can a man handle him?" "Could I handle him?" "Sure. He's been trained to handle. But like I said, Kavik's no family pet. He's never been inside a house in his life or had anybody make a fuss over him. He's a sled dog leader, pure and simple. Now I've got another dog here. I want this one." Charlie One-Eye thought fast. Why did Hunter want Kavik? Then he thought he knew. Hunter collects objects of interest in the north and sent them home. Hunter wanted the animal to show off. Kvik was a dog bred of the wild, part wolf. The very traits he'd been pointing out in Kvik as undesirable were the things the little man wanted. Now that he had made up his mind about this, Charlie decided. The only thing left to do was bargain as shrewdly as possible. "Give you 500, Hunter said sharply. Charlie shook his head. "His first batch of pups will bring more than that. 750. That's a good price for a dog." "Not for this dog. He just won the North American. Every racing club from Maine to Mexico will know about Kvik in a week." "Then name your price." Charlie one-eye hedged. "Like I said, I hadn't planned to sell him. I'll have to train a new lead dog. That takes time, and every dog won't make a big, strong leader like Kvik. Fact is, I don't know where I'd find another like him. Then I'll lose his pups that I could sell." "Never mind working up to it," Hunter said impatiently. "Name your price." "Tell you what, Mr. Hunter, make it 2,000 and you've got a dog." "That's a lot of money." "He's a lot of dog. You want one that's part wolf, that looks like a wolf?" Charlie said shrewdly. "You'll look a long time before you find another like him, if ever. 2,000, Mr. Hunter." George Hunter scowled. He started to argue, then thought better of it. "All right, you've sold him. When do you want to take him?" "Smiley Johnson, the bush pilot, will pick him up this noon. He'll fly him out to my cannery at Copper City, where one of my tenders will take him aboard and deliver him to me in Seattle." "You'd better make it before noon." Charlie pointed at the lead sky. "We've got a blizzard coming." "Johnson knows. The weather station told him, but he's working on his plane this morning. It's his problem. You'll need some kind of strong box to put him in. He can chew right through ordinary wood with those jaws, and he'll try. He's never been cooped up." "Got an iron cage. Johnson had it built to fly out a young polar bear for the zoo a year ago. It'll hold him." "You had it all figured out before you came out here this morning," Charlie One-Eye accused. "I always figure things out ahead," Hunter answered. In such casual manner was the course of Kvik's life changed forever.